Right, I promised you some seafaring, so let's get moving. And we're going to look at some more evidence of the past, and I believe the archaeology of the future. If you've ever taken the Larne ferry, you'll have seen it for yourself. The old and the new, side by side. The lighthouses on the Maidens off the Antrim coast. And as you left Larne, you'll have seen this too, the Chain Lighthouse. It's built to look like an early Christian round tower, and there is a connection, because the earliest guiding lights on the Ulster coast did come from the monasteries.
The sort of lighthouses that would have been associated with monasteries were not up the top of those sorts of towers. It was a matter of keeping a brazier burning with a light that was evident from sea. But yes, there is that wonderful historical connection between the likes of the Chain Memorial with the Irish Round Tower, following on the monastic tradition.
And the earliest lighthouse we can see today?
Well, in terms of records and remains, it's a cottage lighthouse on the Copeland Islands, on Lighthouse Island. And records there from about 1711, and they show a low cottage which had 3 rooms. It had a vaulted stone roof so that it was protected against fire, because of course it was a fire that was kept lit. 2 of the rooms would have been for accommodation for your lighthouse keepers, 1 for storing fuel in, and then you had a stairway that took you up onto the roof and an elevated tower there where the fire was burned on the top inside a brazier. Nowadays it's Mew Island that has the main light on it, and that's a completely new tower built much higher. It's a case of changes in technology, resources available, and the light is now on the outmost of the islands. But we have to remember that as you're passing by at a ship at sea level, the fact that you know it's not the first island that has the light on it, as long as the light itself is high enough on the island that you can see it, then you'll be covered and you will be saved.
And here's another interesting ruin on South Rocks near the busy fishing port of Portavogie. In its time, this light was a very costly project. First, to combat the battering of the seas, each stone was cut to lock into those around it like a jigsaw. Secondly, half the stones are now at the bottom of the sea when the boat carrying them hit the rocks and sank. Today, it's not been used for well over 100 years. So did somebody get it wrong?
The smaller the island, the more difficult it is to provision that light, and that's the case with the South Rock light. It's literally straight out of the rock itself. But then whenever technology moves on and you find that you can take a lightship and anchor it perhaps a mile, 2 miles offshore, then obviously your warning to mariners is much better because you're further out. And of course that lightship itself has now been superseded by a radio buoy. So you're reflecting changes in technology. I think it's very easy for us to look back and say somebody got it wrong. I think the decisions made at the time were probably perfectly correct, but technology moves on.
Did you know that some of our lighthouses are so skillfully engineered and constructed that they're now listed buildings? I love them all, but especially this one, the Hall Bowling light at the entrance to Carlingford Loch. I think you'll agree, it's something really special.
A fantastic light there, the Hall Bowling light, built straight out off the rock, and very important to shipping, of course, coming up and down to Newry, which historically was a very important port, and a very fine structure, very elegant in its design, and one where it shows evidence of the kind of quality of work that was done, because whenever you get up to the lens itself, obviously you need to have access to the exterior of the lens to clean it. You've got bird droppings, you've got salt spray, etc. But the handles that the men would have held on to as they worked their way around there, because you're going to have windy days when you have to do it, are shaped like dolphins, and they are absolutely gorgeous things, and yet so few people would see them. But nice that just the scale of investment, the importance of it, that quality come in, and they have these gorgeous little dolphin handles round about the lens.
But even the beautiful Hall Bowling could be under threat.
In terms of technological progress now, I mean, we still maintain the lights because, especially for yachts, it's very important to be able to see a flashing light. For major commercial shipping now, much of that is done by radar, etc. And really, there's a question over, do they need to have these visual symbols anymore? And you know, will they continue to pay for them?
And what about that upside down one? Yes, the Rathlin West light really is at the bottom of the tower.
The important thing there was to get a light that was high enough above sea level to be seen from a considerable distance, but not so high that it came into the low cloud that was prevalent there. So the lens, the light itself, is set at the bottom of the stack of accommodation.
So the obvious question, since building high is costly, why have a tower at all?
The reason to stack that accommodation is not simply for convenience or to separate your lighthouse keepers so that their snoring isn't heard from one room to another. It's a matter of, it was a clockwork mechanism. If you consider your lighthouse to be like a grandfather clock, you've got a mechanism you need to turn and you need a height where the weights fall through.